Before I started recording for this week, I had a few objectives I wanted to achieve. Previously, I had located the map chest in a shipwreck, but I learned from consulting various resources that there were 2 other chests that should have generated based on the shipwreck's size. I also wanted to grab the beds in the nearby desert villages. To that end, I figured making a system of nether portals that linked to the villages in each map would be a good idea, especially since I will need to travel further out to experience the new terrain in 1.17. So, on day 81, I made my way down to the cave and mined 20 obsidian, enough to make another portal in the overworld for each of the 2 villages in the south and southwest maps. And by sunset, I was making my way south to the first village. Yes, I know, it took me the entire day to get the obsidian and straighten out my inventory. However, it might have been for the best that I was traveling through the desert at night, because I might not have found this ruined portal otherwise. Despite it being super close to the South Desert Village, I hadn't seen it before, though that may be because it was kind of buried under the sand. I have turned up my render distance slightly, so hopefully this sort of thing will happen a little less frequently. As always, I wouldn't hold your breath, though. Inside were 2 more shiny axes, flint, shiny gold pants, and 7 gold ingots. The pants had blast protection, too. I might end up wearing those. We'll see. I can only assume this configuration is meant to imply that the portal somehow fell over backwards into the lava. I don't know, I'm not an archaeologist. And it sounds like I'm going to have to wait until at least 1.19 to fulfill those dreams. At least I got a gold block out of the deal. I had left the ruined portal's vicinity and was on my way to the desert village when I thought, hey, wait a minute. There's obsidian there. Why don't I just build the portal there and save myself some obsidian? So that's what I did. Yes, I know, it's not pretty. It can be made pretty later. So, after writing down the coordinates so I could make the corresponding portal in the Nether, I made my way west towards the shipwreck and the other desert village. The first order of business was to figure out the location for the Nether portal for this village. I noticed this sandstone pathway at the very edge of town and figured it would make a good site for the portal. And because I saved some obsidian when making the first portal, I had 12 blocks of the stuff in my inventory. The pathway is 3 blocks wide and 12 divided by 4 is 3, so it just seemed right to make a 3x3 portal. Things don't always go the way you planned them, but sometimes it's better that way anyway. Again, I'll worry about making it look pretty later. Anyway, with that taken care of, it was time to turn my attention to the shipwreck. There were 2 more chests that I was supposed to find. Key phrase, supposed to. As it turns out, the 2 other chests didn't generate. I double-checked the online resources to make sure I was looking at the correct spots. They weren't there. What's even more aggravating is that I almost died. I naively thought, what if the chest is somehow under one of the planks? It wasn't. I got all the way down to 2 hearts, and for no reason. I didn't even bring stew with me. You know, now that I think about it, it's almost like symmetry because out of the 3 desert temples I have found, only 1 generated with chests, and out of the 3 chests that should have generated in the shipwreck, only 1 did. I mean, at least it was the map chest, so I also got some buried treasure. I'm still mad, though. Fortunately, there were plenty of very soft beds nearby for me to take out my aggression on. That's probably not a healthy coping mechanism, though. After grabbing all the beds I could carry after leaving 1 slot open for my boat, I made my way back home. Yeah, I think having my render distance turned up makes quite a difference. I may have to remodel this village, though, with how close it is to my house. I'm thinking of putting something like a skyscraper where the cobblestone tower is that's furthest from my house, but I'm not quite sure what to do with the rest. If you have any suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Now that I was home once again, it was time to move all of these beds from my inventory to the designated bed barrel. I was very eager to get back to bed mining, but first I would need to diligently regain all of my health. Since I would be returning to netherite mining soon, I broke down and mined 3 of the 8 diamond blocks to make myself another pickaxe. I'm still waiting on finding a mending or fortune book. And here's the second netherite pickaxe for this world. Hopefully it lasts a bit longer than the first. It would be a while before I could regain 6 hearts, so I returned to the crop building to tend my potatoes and carrots. It certainly looks more impressive now that it's twice as powerful. Should I extend it again? Perhaps I will once I have mending. With the carrots in the composter and the potatoes in the smoker, I decided it was well past time I cut down these acacia trees in my front lawn. Speaking of acacia, it was also well past time that I got the acacia boat out of my inventory and continued construction on the dock. However, I would need some stripped spruce logs, so I began taking down the large spruce tree that had once again generated in the mushroom patch. Does anyone else think the sound for stripping logs sounds a little menacing, or is that just me? It was night when the last logs were finally collected. I still haven't installed outdoor lighting, so I decided I'd make the best use of the night by sorting my barrels. It's not the most exciting activity, but it needs to be done from time to time. I also grabbed all of the nether bricks out of the furnace output barrel and converted them into nether brick blocks. Since I want to make portals for each of the major areas, it makes sense to make paths between those portals in the nether. I know that at least one portal will eventually be in the direction of the lava sea, so I will need some blocks for a bridge. In the meantime, I'll keep these blocks with the other nether stuff. I made yet another quick lava run. In a way, it's very convenient that my portal spawned so close to lava. Next morning, I decided to harvest the sugarcane around the smaller pond. I will be needing maps for the 1.17 update after all. And since I was still waiting to heal, I harvested and composted the pumpkins. That didn't take very long though, so dock construction resumed. I had to uproot these 3 pieces of sugarcane. They were in the way. At least they can go towards the map project. Wow, this song is just really intense, but in a good way. It certainly makes building this simple dock feel 100% cooler. Unfortunately, the music stopped before I returned to the task of sorting barrels. I guess cool music wouldn't have made this task feel that much cooler, but it might have helped. With the sun in the sky once again, I figured it was time to check on the underground farm. Seriously, why would I need 3 poisonous potatoes? When I finally returned to the surface, it was raining. I suppose the good thing about being stuck in the overworld until I heal is that it gives me an opportunity to possibly catch a rainstorm. Unfortunately, the rain ended late that night before I could catch anything particularly exciting. At least I was 1 shell closer to a conduit. I would still need to find prismarine, though. I returned to the dock the next morning. I knew it wasn't done, but I wasn't quite sure how to proceed. I decided to continue the path up the hill towards the crop building, and made the pillars a little taller. It was just a little bit too dark in front of the crop building that night, so I added some lanterns to the outside. That should help keep it from getting too dark. Finally, I realized that I wanted to add some fences in between the dock pillars. I thought that oak fences would look okay, so I borrowed some from the nearby village to make sure before I crafted more. Ultimately, I decided to have a fence gate in the middle of 2 posts. It's also practical because then I can just open the gate if I don't want to walk all the way to the end of the dock. And I think it's done for now. It still needs lighting and some other decorations, but I'm satisfied. With all 10 hearts finally filled, I gathered 20 more obsidian. I wasn't planning on placing the portals in the Nether just yet, but I figured I might as well gather the blocks and take them with me when I resumed netherite mining. I descended once more, and after dropping off some of the beds and the obsidian, I was back to bed mining. Ah, fire punching. How I missed you. Unfortunately, after 3 beds, I found no ancient debris, and, with only 4.5 hearts left, it was time to return home. There wasn't much time left before sunrise and the end of the week, so I put the lava and netherrack into the furnace system, combined my stone pickaxes, and composted the few pumpkins that had grown back. Until next time, take care.